All right, everyone. If you are hearing me and seeing me, then that means that you have indeed come to the right place. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Association Chat. Before we get started, I want to give a big thanks to our wonderful sponsor, Fontiva. It's the AMS for Innovation for their ongoing support of Association Chat and the association community. Check out Fontiva.com to find out about Fontiva for associations, Fontiva for events, Fontiva for government, and more. Check them out, fontiva.com. All right. Welcome to Association Chat. It's your weekly online discussion for the association community where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, KiKi L'Italien, and for this episode of Association Chat, we're talking with Rachel Lehman. Lehman, yes? Lehman. I'm so sorry. Rachel Lehman. She's the executive director of the CARE Action Network in DC, an organization dedicated to fighting global poverty for women and girls, along with a number of other initiatives. I want to find out about her work with CARE, the challenges she sees with breaking through donor fatigue and apathy, the different ways that donors are able to give, and to find out more about what the CARE Action Network is going to do moving forward. As always, I invite anyone watching on Crowdcast or Facebook Live to write in your questions for Rachel, and I will try to monitor and present them to her along the way. So hi, Rachel Lehman. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I wanted to start with a question. I think the first question should have been, how do I pronounce your last name? But going past that, start with a question about your career path, because as I was preparing for today's show, I thought it was interesting that, like so many of us in the association and nonprofit world, you didn't actually start with that, right? So where did you start in your career?
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually still a relative newcomer to the nonprofit world. I started out in the political world. I spent about 14 years working on Capitol Hill. Well, first I worked on Capitol Hill. I went in and did some political campaigning, and I came back to the Hill, where I spent most of the aughts and the early part of the current decade working in the House of Representatives. And then I left. I took a couple of years living in Japan, doing some consulting work, and came back the States and worked on another campaign, a presidential campaign in 2016, and then found my way to CARE and to CARE Action a couple of years ago.
Wow. I love hearing stories like that. Your story is so interesting because it shows that it's that journey along the way that I think helps drive a lot of us to the work that we do. And tell me more about that. Tell me about the CARE Action Network. How is it connected to CARE, and what is it that you're doing there?
Well, so for those who might not be aware of what CARE is, to start out, we are a global development and humanitarian organization. We were formed as a cooperative in the wake of World War II, of Americans coming together and wanting to send care packages. This is where the term care package comes from. The original care packages were food and medical supplies and other necessities that we sent first to refugees in France, and then Germany, and throughout Europe, and eventually throughout the world. And today we have grown into a global organization, programming in over 90 countries around the world, doing all kinds of development, humanitarian response, working first and foremost with women and girls. And responding to those urgent humanitarian crises, those emergency and crisis settings, and also working to really partner with women and girls around the world for long-term systemic change, so that they can realize their full rights, their full potential, rise out of poverty. So that is the work that CARE does. And as I said, we've been doing for over 7 decades. In the last 10 to 15 years, a bigger and bigger piece of that work has been around advocacy work and really using advocacy and the power of changing policy to help us achieve our overall mission as CARE to defeat poverty and to achieve social justice. And so the CARE Action Network is a really central piece to that advocacy work in the U.S. It is a network of really passionate, nearly 300,000 advocates and supporters around the country who want to lift up their voices and want to push the U.S. government to support the policies and the funding that's needed to do this kind of development and humanitarian work around the world.
I think, I mean, it sounds incredible. And I can only imagine that with it being such a politically charged time, with it being so divisive, especially with American politics, I think that, you know, that must be challenging. What are some of the challenges that you face with running an organization like this?
Well, it is a challenge, but like many challenges, it's also an opportunity. And just to do a quick check-in, I feel like I have lost you, and I just want to make sure you can still hear me.
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, great. I thought maybe we had a technical glitch. It is a really divisive time, and I think one of the things, though, that really draws our advocates to CARE Action, because we've got supporters, we've got advocates across the political spectrum, you know, both sides of the aisle, independents, and the full range. And I think part of what draws them is an opportunity to get out of that divisive partisan political morass and work for a higher purpose, to work together to actually find common ground. We have found that, you know, the issues that we advocate on around defeating global poverty and empowering women and girls globally, that they're not partisan issues. We have champions on both sides of the aisle, and so it's a challenge to navigate the tricky politics, especially right now. I think part of what makes the current political environment so tricky is it's not just strictly partisan. It's not just Democrats versus Republicans. President Trump he's not your typical Republican, and he's kind of scrambled things in lots of ways, including around the issues we advocate on. For example, he's called for slashing the budget around foreign investment, and both Republicans and Democrats in Congress have pushed back on that and actually ensured that budget. So it's tricky for sure. It's a challenging time, but it really is an opportunity to transcend that environment and work for something very positive and something really concrete, that actions that any one person can take to really do something good and positive and meaningful and impactful in the world.
Wow. So one of the things that I hear that is also a problem, and it's not just in our particular, you know, time now, but it's just because it's so noisy out there, and there's so many people asking for help, and you know, there's this idea of donor fatigue, this idea of donor apathy, where you know people feel like maybe they're giving in too many places, or they're always being asked. That has to be a challenge too. I mean, what are some of the ways that you sort of counteract that or break through that?
Mm-hmm. Well, and to donor fatigue, I would also add just advocate fatigue. I mean, there are so many issues clamoring for attention right now. So many good causes out there who are asking of your time and your money, and it's hard to know, you know, where even to begin. And when you look at the humanitarian situation around the world and the enormous number of crises that we're seeing, it's Syria, it's Yemen, it's South Sudan, it's Nigeria, it's Myanmar, so many just enormous humanitarian challenges around the world. Many of these, some that are flaring up new right now, some that have been going on for years and years. And, we have kind of a history of there's an emergency, whether it's a natural disaster or something man-made, and we all clamor around that and fundraise around that emergency, and then the public attention sort of moves on, and that's just not a model that works anymore. It doesn't work for those of us who are doing the work, and it doesn't work for donors, because it does really create that fatigue and that sense of is there actually a long-term impact here? What are my dollars going towards? So this is why we really focus our work on what is going to be sustainable, what is going to have a lasting impact, what is going to get us beyond cycles of poverty, what is going to allow us to work with communities to have those really long-term sustainable solutions, and that's a big piece of it, and also just recognizing that everybody can give in different ways, at levels, and at different times. And again, we look for those who can give financially. That's a really critical piece for us to be able to continue to do our work, but also for those who are willing to give their time and their voice, and recognizing that if this is not a moment where you have the ability to give financially, or you're giving in other ways, that there's still ways that you can support the work and be involved and offer what it is that you have to give.
Well, and that's I think so important. I love what you were talking about on showing sustainability, on showing how that you're helping people in a way where it can, like when somebody gives, that continues to give and helps these people for the long term, and not just for a hit right then and there. And that makes me wonder about what goes into your messaging, your marketing, and things like that. A lot of people who tune into this show, they're concerned with, how they can use technology or marketing in a way that will make them more effective in reaching their members and their donors, so that they can, bring those people, encourage those people to stay involved. What have you found that works, and what have you found that doesn't work?
Well, I think one thing that's really important is that technology is a tool, and it's not an end in itself. There's no substitute really for powerful storytelling. And technology can really enable us to tell powerful stories, but it's necessary but not sufficient. And this is one thing with CARE, doing so many different types of work in so many places. I've had the privilege of traveling to see some of CARE's work, and meeting some of the people that we work with, and hearing their incredibly powerful stories. And what I have found is that for our advocates in the U.S., that connection, really feeling that connection, hearing those stories, and seeing the commonalities, and there's so much that we all have in common in our experiences, but also the differences, that the way that creates a real deep and personal connection to the work, that's so important in order to feel motivated as a donor, as an advocate, feeling that connection. And so it's telling those stories in a powerful way, in a way that allows us to all see those common threads.
Yeah. I think that people are looking at using things like augmented reality or virtual reality as a way to tell stories like that even more. Is that something that you guys have used or are thinking of using?
Yeah, actually, we did a virtual reality documentary in Niger, telling the story of, and Niger is a really special place for CARE, because it was the start 25 years ago of a program called Village Savings and Loan Associations, which they look different everywhere you go, but essentially they are community groups for by women and men, but women are really at the center of it, where they can pool their resources together, save together, make loans to each other to facilitate starting businesses, paying medical costs, sending children to school. And so it's one of those ways that the CARE provides the tools, but the women, the communities themselves, they really do the transformative work, and it opens up so many other avenues and opportunities for them. And in Niger, where it all started, one of the things that it has led to is a whole range of other types of empowerment and civic engagement. And I hope I'm not getting this stat wrong, but I believe 80% of the women in Niger who hold public office have gone through a CARE Village Savings and Loan.
Wow. Wow.
So it's really had this extensive and transformative, and these women now are leaders in that whole region. And it's this really just amazing, powerful story. And through virtual reality, we're able to really take people to Niger and experience being there in those communities and seeing some of these the amazing people that we work with there. And so that's absolutely a valuable tool that we want to use more.
I love that. Okay. And that makes me want to ask you about your conference coming up, and if something like that will be there. Ooh, and I hear danger. This is what happens when you're in DC.
Apologies. I'm right downtown, and we have sirens going by all day long.
So I wanted to quickly ask just a question about how people give, how donors give. I recently became aware of something called donor advised funds, or DAFs, and this was something I hadn't even been aware of. I didn't realize there were so many different ways that people could give. How do people give? What are their options? What are some of the ways that they give to CARE and the CARE Action Network?
Yeah, and donor advised funds they're a great example of a way that donors can get involved and really kind of live out their passion through how they are choosing to donate money, and it very donor-centric approach, and so that's one of the ways that we work with donors. We and excuse me.
Bless you. Bless you.
We invite supporters of our the full range of work that we do, donors who want to give to support CARE's work very broadly. Care.org is the place to go and do that. Those who want to support this advocacy work that we're doing, careaction.org is the place to do that. But as we do such a broad range of programming, everything from working with women farmers to help them to grow the food that they need to feed their families and their communities, to educating girls, to access to clean water, to providing health services to women and girls, responding to humanitarian crises. There's such a range of work that we do that whatever donors may be passionate about or interested in, there is a really good chance that that CARE does work in that vein. And we love to work with donors to match them with the passion that they have.
I love that. I have a question here from someone who does a lot of donating herself. She says, I struggle with donations local versus international and with limited funds as an individual. How does one decide priorities? She says, I have 2 local groups that I give to monthly.
Well, first of all, thank you. And I think it is so important to support those doing good work in your communities and being supportive of local organizations. That's incredibly important. And in fact, we take a very sort of locally driven, locally focused approach to the work that we do as well. So we're doing work globally, we're doing work internationally, but we are doing it in close partnership with the very communities that we're working with and serving, and ensuring that they are part of that process from the very beginning, and helping to that, we're responsive to what they identify as what their needs are and what the solutions are. And so having that local, community mentality is so important. And we really try to live that out. So understand there are so many good causes in this world, and if you are giving locally and don't have the ability to give beyond that, then that's great that you're doing what you're doing. What an organization like CARE can do, because we have the history and the scale and the scope and those deep community connections. I do think that what we're able to bring to bear is really that systemic, long-term, sustainable change. And so, if that's something that donors really care about and are passionate about, that CARE may be a good home for your hard-earned donations as well.
Okay, so because this is a shorter association chat than is usual, I wish I could spend more time diving into that. And there are a couple more questions to get to, but I want you to have time to talk about, you have a big conference that's coming up. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on with that?
Yeah, so that will be next week, May 21st to the 23rd in Washington, D.C. This is a conference that we have been doing every year and it is our biggest gathering of advocates from around the country and really around from the globe. We will be having a number of supporters coming in from all over the world, and it's this incredible convening of policymakers, of development experts, of thought leaders of all kinds, and just everyday citizen advocates who have some who have been involved with CARE and our advocacy agenda for a few months, and some who have been doing this for 10 or 15 years. We actually are going to have a number of people at the conference this year that this is their 10th or more conference that they've come to. So it's this wonderful community that comes together from around the world every year. We do intensive training for a couple of days, really diving into the issues and how to be an effective advocate all year round. We have inspiring speakers this year. We have, for example, former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates, who famously stood up against the travel ban. We've got Carla Hall. We've got a number of senators and members of Congress, a great group of speakers. So we spend a couple days doing those trainings and hearing from some inspirational speakers, and then we go up to Capitol Hill on day 3 and directly meet with members of Congress and their staff and urge them to continue to support the incredible leadership and work that the U.S. has been doing since World War II to really lead in development and humanitarian work and make the case for why. We understand that there are a lot of issues clamoring for attention, and we want to be there to make the case and lift up the voices of those around the world whose lives are saved and who are put on a permanent path toward opportunity and out of poverty, thanks to the work that the U.S. has led on and supported for so many years, and we really just need to make sure that continues.
It sounds super exciting. I want to get to another question that we had here because it has to do with Facebook, and everybody's interested in Facebook. And our our questioner. The question is, how do you feel about the Facebook donating options? I used it for my birthday and raised nearly $1,000 of my original $360 goal for an international organization. I was hesitant, but the group seemed pleased. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's a really wonderful tool, and what I love about those who use tools like this to engage their community is that it really shows the way that one person can leverage so much beyond just themselves. You yourself, you may have $10 to give, but if you can get the word out and encourage your friends and your family and your networks to also give, even if it's just $5 or $10, whatever you're able, then that leveraging potential there is so huge. And I think it's a good illustration in the same way that advocacy works in general, that one voice is powerful. One voice can make a difference. But when that one voice brings together dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of other voices, then that power grows exponentially. And so it's great to hear that used, and we love to encourage that.
Well, that's wonderful. And speaking of encouragement, I mean, now we're right down to the final minute. So what's the call to action that you have for all of us today, for anybody who's listening to this now, or maybe in the next couple of days when they listen on the podcast? What's one thing that you'd like for all of us to do? Fight
apathy and discouragement. Make a conscious choice every day not to get, read the news. Don't close yourself off from the bad and challenging things that are happening. It's good and important to be informed, but don't let it make you feel hopeless. Don't let it make you feel as though there's nothing that can be done and there's no way to make a difference, because it's absolutely not true. And so if there are so many, as I said, there's so many great organizations all across the country and around the world, in your local community, operating throughout the U.S., operating throughout the world. Don't give in to the feeling that you can't help make the world a better place. Go out, whatever that organization is, whatever that issue is that you're passionate about. If you can give financially, give financially. If you can give your time, give your time. If you can give your voice, give your voice. Whatever it is that you have to offer, I assure you, you have something of value to offer, and just don't let it go to waste.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you to my guest, Rachel Lehman, for joining us today on Association Chat. And thanks to all of you who participated. I know it was not at the usual time, usual place, but hopefully many of you will be able to see this and listen to this later on the podcast. And I hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked the show, subscribe to our Amazon Echo flash briefing. And please be sure to like, thank, and subscribe, and do all the things to share that love. And until next time, everyone, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you.